Mercedes just crossed the line from teammate rivalry into full civil war. And Canada may have been the exact moment everything inside the team started breaking apart. Because George Russell was dominating the entire weekend. Sprint pole, sprint victory, Grand Prix pole, leading the race under massive pressure from Kimi Antonelli. Then suddenly, his Mercedes completely died. No electronics, no MGUK, no regenerative braking, nothing. And while Russell stood beside a dead car looking absolutely devastated, Antonelli inherited the lead and drove calmly toward his 5th consecutive Formula One victory. That is when the emotional balance inside Mercedes completely exploded. Because before the retirement, Russell and Antonelli were already fighting each other more aggressively than at any other point this season. Relentless DRS attacks, hard defensive moves, radio complaints exploding over team communications. At one point, Antonelli even shouted, "He's using the whole track. He's not leaving me space." That was not normal teammate frustration anymore. That looked personal. And now the situation inside Mercedes is becoming terrifying. Because Antonelli suddenly looks unstoppable. 5 consecutive victories. 43 points clear in the championship. Meanwhile, Russell sounds like a driver emotionally cornered. Right now, it's his, unless he loses it. That does not sound like confidence. That sounds like a driver realizing the future of Mercedes may already be slipping away from him. But then came the line that should seriously terrify Toto Wolff. The pressure is gone now. I have nothing to lose. And Formula One becomes incredibly dangerous when elite drivers stop racing with fear. Especially inside the fastest car on the grid. Especially when the team still cannot fully explain the catastrophic electrical failure that destroyed Russell's race in Canada. Because according to the concerns emerging after the Grand Prix, Mercedes may already be pushing the new MGUK systems dangerously close to their technical limits under the 2026 regulations. That means Mercedes is now fighting 2 terrifying battles at the same time. A reliability crisis. And a teammate war that is rapidly becoming emotional instead of controlled. And once you understand what really happened during those brutal first 30 laps between Russell and Antonelli in Canada, the entire future of Mercedes suddenly looks far more explosive than anyone imagined. Subscribe if you love Formula One stories that reveal what teams desperately try to hide. At first, Mercedes tried to act like Canada was just another hard racing incident between 2 competitive drivers. Nothing unusual. Nothing dangerous. Just teammates pushing each other at the limit. But inside the paddock, almost nobody truly believed that explanation. Because the deeper people analyzed the first 30 laps between George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, the more obvious the tension became. This was not healthy rivalry anymore. This looked emotional, personal, and maybe even inevitable. Now, to understand why Canada became such a massive turning point for Mercedes, you need to understand what George Russell was really fighting for that weekend. Not just points. Control. Because for months, the entire Formula One narrative had slowly shifted toward Antonelli. The unstoppable rookie. The future superstar. The next Mercedes champion. Meanwhile, Russell was quietly becoming the forgotten driver despite performing at an incredibly high level. Canada was finally supposed to change that. And honestly, for almost the entire weekend, it did. Sprint pole. Sprint victory. Grand Prix pole. George looked untouchable. Calm under pressure. Aggressive when necessary. Completely in control of the fastest car on the grid. And maybe most importantly, he finally looked stronger than Antonelli again. That mattered emotionally. You could feel it immediately in the way Russell defended during the race. Every move carried intensity. Every braking zone looked aggressive. Especially once Antonelli started attacking repeatedly with DRS. And this is where the atmosphere inside Mercedes started becoming genuinely uncomfortable. Because Kimi was not behaving like a rookie anymore. He attacked George directly. Fearlessly. Repeatedly. Almost like a driver trying to prove the team already belonged to him. That changes everything psychologically inside Formula One garages. At one point, Antonelli became so frustrated by Russell's defense that he exploded over the radio. "He's using the whole track. He's not leaving me space." That was not casual frustration. That was anger becoming public. And inside Mercedes, everybody immediately understood the danger. Because when teammates start communicating emotionally over the radio, the rivalry is no longer fully controlled internally. Even Toto Wolff reportedly watched the battle from the pit wall with visible tension while monitoring the telemetry. Now imagine the atmosphere inside that garage during those moments. The fastest car in Formula One. 2 championship contenders. Neither willing to back down. And underneath everything, growing pressure from the championship itself. because Antonelli entered Canada already carrying massive momentum. 4 consecutive victories before the weekend. The confidence of a future world champion already visible in every overtake attempt. Meanwhile, Russell arrived carrying frustration. Near misses. Reliability concerns. Missed opportunities earlier in the season. That emotional imbalance matters enormously. Because one driver was racing with freedom. The other was racing like somebody trying to stop the future from replacing him. Then came lap 30. Turn 9. Russell leading comfortably. Antonelli still hunting him down. And suddenly, complete electrical collapse. No electronics. No MGUK. No regenerative braking. Nothing. Russell later described the moment brutally. Everything just switched off. And what makes this story emotionally devastating is this. George did almost everything perfectly that weekend. And still walked away watching Antonelli extend the championship lead to 43 points. That kind of emotional damage changes drivers. Especially elite drivers. Which is exactly why Russell's post-race comments sounded so dangerous. Right now, it's his, unless he loses it. That did not sound like motivation. That sounded like emotional exhaustion. But then came the line Mercedes should fear most moving forward. The pressure is gone now. I have nothing to lose. That changes everything. Because Formula One becomes terrifying when elite teammates stop racing strategically and start racing emotionally instead. Especially when the team still cannot fully explain the catastrophic failure that destroyed Russell's race. And now Mercedes faces the nightmare scenario every dominant team fears most. Antonelli racing with unstoppable confidence. Russell racing with growing anger. And a car that may already be operating dangerously close to its reliability limits under the new regulations. Then the situation inside Mercedes became even more dangerous after engineers started analyzing what actually happened before Russell's retirement. Because according to the information emerging after Canada, there may have been warning signs building for several laps before the total electrical collapse. That changes everything emotionally inside the team. Because now Mercedes is not only dealing with a teammate war. It may also be dealing with a car operating dangerously close to its own technical limits. And honestly, that combination is terrifying. Think about what Russell was managing during those opening 30 laps. Relentless pressure from Antonelli. Aggressive defensive driving. Heavy energy deployment demands under the new 2026 regulations. The W17 was being pushed to the absolute edge. And according to the concerns emerging after the race, the likely issue involves catastrophic stress in the MGUK inverter system. That matters enormously. Because the electrical systems under the new regulations now operate at almost 3 times the previous energy load. Which means drivers fighting aggressively wheel-to-wheel may actually increase the stress on the power systems dramatically. That is where the story becomes deeply uncomfortable for Mercedes. Because before the retirement, Russell and Antonelli were not managing the race carefully. They were fighting like enemies. Every straight looked aggressive. Every braking zone looked emotional. And every failed attack increased the pressure inside both cars mechanically and psychologically. Now imagine what Toto Wolff was seeing from the pit wall during those moments. The fastest car in Formula One. A possible 1-2 finish. And 2 teammates racing each other so hard that the situation already looked close to exploding emotionally. Then suddenly, the leading car dies completely. That changes the atmosphere inside a team instantly. Especially because Antonelli inherited another victory from the disaster. That emotional detail matters more than people realize. Because from Russell's perspective, Canada may feel like the perfect weekend stolen away while fighting the exact teammate trying to take control of the team's future. That creates frustration naturally. And frustration changes drivers. You could already hear it in Russell's voice after the race. Not just disappointment. Exhaustion. The emotional exhaustion of somebody performing at an elite level, while watching momentum keep slipping away anyway. Right now, it's his, unless he loses it. That sentence sounded brutally honest. And honesty inside Formula One garages can become dangerous very quickly. Because now everyone inside Mercedes knows the truth. Antonelli is no longer the future project. He is becoming the present reality. 5 consecutive victories. 43 points clear in the championship. And racing with the confidence of somebody who genuinely believes the team already belongs to him. Meanwhile, Russell is entering a completely different emotional state. The pressure is gone now. I have nothing to lose. That line should seriously terrify Mercedes. Because drivers with nothing to lose stop racing conservatively. Especially drivers like George Russell. Aggressive under braking. Emotionally intense during wheel-to-wheel battles. Already frustrated by reliability problems this season. Now combine that mentality with Monaco approaching next. A circuit where qualifying becomes psychological warfare, where overtaking is almost impossible, and where teammate tension can explode instantly from one blocked lap or one aggressive move into Saint Devote. Mercedes understands this danger better than any team on the grid, because they already survived Hamilton versus Rosberg. And honestly, the emotional signs after Canada are starting to feel disturbingly similar. One driver becoming increasingly confident, the other becoming increasingly unpredictable. And underneath all of it, a reliability mystery still not fully explained publicly. That combination is explosive, because eventually, pressure forces every hidden weakness into the open. Technical weakness, emotional weakness, team weakness. And after Canada, Mercedes suddenly looks vulnerable in all three areas at the exact same time. Which may be why the entire paddock is now starting to ask one terrifying question. Did the Canadian Grand Prix just become the moment Mercedes' championship dream started tearing itself apart from the inside? But the most terrifying part of Mercedes' Canada disaster may be what happens next inside the garage. Because after a weekend like this, Formula One teams stop operating emotionally as one unit. The pressure fractures people. Quietly at first, then all at once. And Canada may have already started that process inside Mercedes. Because now every single person in the garage knows something dangerous. George Russell had the pace to beat Antonelli. That matters enormously. For months, the entire Formula One world had started treating Antonelli like the unstoppable future of Mercedes. The next champion. The next superstar. The inevitable leader of the team. Then Canada suddenly interrupted that narrative. Russell looked stronger, faster, more complete across the entire weekend. That changes the psychology inside a garage instantly. Because mechanics and engineers naturally move toward momentum, toward confidence, toward whichever driver looks capable of leading the team emotionally. And before the retirement, that driver looked like George Russell. Then the car died. And now everything becomes complicated again. Because Antonelli still won. Still extended the championship lead to 43 points. Still leaves Canada carrying the momentum publicly. But internally, Mercedes may now face a much more uncomfortable truth. Russell is not psychologically beaten yet. That is dangerous for the team. Because frustrated elite drivers become unpredictable once they realize pure speed alone may not save the championship. And George's comments after the race exposed exactly that emotional shift. The pressure is gone now. I have nothing to lose. That sentence changes everything heading into the next races. Especially Monaco. Because Monaco is not just another Grand Prix. It is psychological warfare. One blocked qualifying lap can destroy relationships inside teams instantly. One aggressive overtake attempt can become a season-defining controversy. And now Mercedes arrives there with two drivers carrying completely opposite emotional energy. Antonelli feels invincible. Russell feels robbed. That combination is explosive. Especially because the reliability mystery still hangs over the entire garage. According to the concerns emerging after Canada, Mercedes may already be pushing the new electrical systems close to the edge of what the 2026 regulations can safely handle. That should seriously terrify the team. Because now every aggressive battle between the drivers carries two layers of danger. Emotional risk, technical risk, and Canada already proved how quickly both can collide together. Imagine the next direct fight between Russell and Antonelli. Russell defending harder because he feels the championship slipping away. Antonelli attacking harder because he smells total control of the team. Meanwhile, Mercedes engineers worrying whether the power systems can even survive another maximum pressure battle. That is not stability. That is chaos waiting for the wrong moment. And honestly, Toto Wolff may already understand how serious the situation is becoming. Because after the race, his language sounded careful. Very careful. We want drivers who fight to win. But we cannot have incidents that hurt the team. That did not sound like confidence. That sounded like concern. Real concern. Because Mercedes has already lived through this nightmare before. Hamilton versus Rosberg started exactly the same way. Respect slowly turning into tension. Tension turning into emotional racing. And emotional racing eventually turning into collisions, distrust, and internal division. The terrifying part is this. Russell versus Antonelli may escalate even faster. Because both drivers are fighting from completely different emotional positions now. Antonelli is protecting momentum. Russell is trying to stop his future from being taken away. That creates desperation naturally. And desperation changes how drivers race. Later braking. Harder defense. Riskier decisions. Especially on circuits where overtaking is almost impossible and qualifying pressure becomes unbearable. Exactly like Monaco. And after Canada, the entire paddock is now watching Mercedes differently. Not as the perfect dominant team anymore, but as a team carrying two massive threats internally at the exact same time. A reliability problem nobody fully understands yet, and a teammate rivalry that is rapidly becoming impossible to control emotionally. Because once drivers stop seeing each other as teammates and start seeing each other as obstacles, the real danger in Formula One begins.